Last time by by mcsqueakers. Chapter 6. Polite. Pigman moved slowly around the table, serving the two dolls cakes and drinks before taking her seat. The setup was bizarre. The room and festivities were set up as the Pinkie Pie Rarity remembered was set it up, but everything was dull and lifeless. Even the host didn't appear to be enjoying her time. What really irked Rarity, however, was that the way Pinkie Mia behaved when talking to those dolls. She would speak normally for a minute, but occasionally her body would give a violent twitch, and she would begin to speak in a weird series of grunts and mumbles, while moving the dolls to match the inflections of her voice. Rarity could only assume that this was when Pigmia was imagining the dolls were conversing with her.
I'm glad you two could join me this afternoon, girls.
Pinkie cheered in a monotone voice.
What I really like is what you've done with your main Rarity. You didn't really have to go all out just for me.
Nonsense, Pinkie! The Rarity doll said, in Pigmia's mind.
You know very well my friends are worth looking my best for.
Oh, well, thank you, she said before pausing for a moment. An inquisitive look came over her face as he examined the doll.
You know what? Your main reminds me of purple licorice. I wonder if it even tastes like purple licorice. What does purple licorice even taste like? Oh well, I guess we'll find out.
Pigmia leaned over to the Rarity doll and began to sniff the purple yarn on the top of its head. Curiously, she extended her tongue, grasping a few strands of it and inserting them into her mouth. She slowly moved it around her mouth before nibbling on it gently. Rarity looked over to Fluttershy, who was sleeping peacefully on the couch now. She slowly ran her hoof through her mane, before pulling the old quilt over her shoulders to keep her warm. Rarity rose up from the couch to investigate Pigmia's bizarre behavior.
Pinkie,
The Twilight doll cut in. I hate to interrupt you a moment, but it seems we have company.
say, does this look familiar?
Pigmia looked up to see Rarity standing a short ways away from the table, serving them quietly. Both Rarity and Pigmia stayed silent and still, unsure as what to do or say to the other.
Why don't you invite her to join us?
The Twilight doll suggested. After all, we do have an extra seat, and you know as well as I do, a party can never have too many guests.
Right,
Pigmia said, dropping the arm from her mouth.
Why don't you join us?
She offered, playing the empty seat at the opposite end of the table from herself. Rarity nervously scooted over to the seat. It appeared that the doll with her likeness never removed its button eyes from her general direction. The silence that continued, even after she had taken her seat, was so silent and still that if Fluttershy tried to whisper something, both of them would have heard it. Ugh. How about you start with introductions? The Twilight doll suggested, sounding a little agitated.
We've already had the pleasure of meeting.
Pigmia whispered to the doll through gritted teeth.
Well, we haven't,
The Rarity doll interjected.
Besides, she looks stunning. I would like to know a few of her beauty secrets.
Fine! Pigmia barked at the two dolls before turning her attention to Rarity.
My dear friends were interested in meeting you. This here is Twilight Sparkle,
Pigmia said, lifting the arm of the Twilight doll and waving it rather cheerfully, despite how unwilling she was.
She's the most powerful unicorn in all of Equestria.
Pigmia paused for a moment to give Rarity a glare before giving her attention to the other doll.
And yes, it's my other friend Rarity. She's the greatest fashion designer ever.
Rarity looked at Pigmia awkwardly, before noticing that she was waiting impatiently for her to introduce herself. Rarity thought carefully for a moment. She knew that Pigmia hadn't believed Spike when they were first reunited, so trying to convince her that she was the real Rarity might not go over so well. Her eyes darted around the room as she quickly tried to come up with an alias.
Pleased to meet you,
she began, turning her attention to the dolls.
My name is Violet, Violet Diamond.
Satisfied, Pigmia returned to her peculiar behavior.
Could I trouble you for a piece of cake?
She inquired. Rarity looked over at the center of the table, where he served a gruesome sight. The cake, probably once a well-made chocolate cake with chocolate icing, was slumped onto the plate as if it had been slowly melting away. The icing was glossy from the oils that had seeped out after staying open so long. where a couple of slices had been cut out, Rarity could see the breading of the cake was dry and stale. Upon closer inspection, she could even see the flecks of mold growing on it. Rarity moved a hoof to her mouth as if feeling nausea setting in. Before she even had a chance to decline, however, Picamina cut a generous slice of rotting confectionery, tossed it on the table directly in front of Rarity, landing with a sickening squish. Picamina leaned over the table, watching her expectantly.
Try it. I made this cake 3 weeks ago. It was just so delicious I had to share it with other ponies.
Her demeanor had turned into a sort of cheerful state, which, due to the circumstances, only sounded sadistic.
I'm grateful for your generous offer, but you see, I already...
Verity stopped short in her sentence. She noticed Piccamina's face had contorted to an angry look.
I mean, I would love to.
Oh, what's not what I mean? Considering what happened to Twilight the last time she had seen Picamina, she became concerned for her own well-being. That, and the fact that Picamina was now leaning closer to her, and there was a knife just within reach. Rarity took the fork from the table and examined it briefly.
At least this looks clean to eat off of.
Satisfied, she put the fork and began to pick at the piece of cake sliced in the front of her. Every time she poked at it, it gave an unpleasant squish, which almost caused her to lose whatever contents she had in her stomach. She looked back at Picamina with tears in her eyes, hoping her demented host was merely joking. But the face with its glared back was only becoming more and more impatient. With a deep gulp, she looked back down at the plate. Much to her dismay, she found that picking it only served to make it even less appetizing than before. The pile of mush that sat on her plate no longer resembled cake. She couldn't even swear she saw it move at one point. With the fork and hoof, she slowly reached down to the plate and scooped up a very small portion of cake. As she raised the fork to her lips, she caught a whiff of the foul odor, causing her to rise to water and nausea to return. She took a second to try and regain her composure.
It's no different than the multiplicity of the fancy parties.
She tried to convince herself. With one quick motion, she moved the fork into her mouth and closed down on it, instantly feeling the malicious attack on her taste buds. Rarity scrambled around for something to wash it down, fighting to keep the food in her mouth. She grabbed one of the cups on the table. Filled with a clear liquid she hoped the Celestial's water. She guzzled the entire contents of the cup without regret, feeling the cake slither its way down her throat. The water had been stale, like it had been left out for a while, but it served its purpose, and removed most of the awful taste of water in her mouth. She let out a gasp as she jumped back into her chair, relieved that the ordeal was over. Pleased with her guess, Picamina released the tension she had been building up, lowering herself back into her seat.
Well, it was kind of you all to drop by.
She began, taking a sip from the cup.
I don't get many visitors, that I don't particularly mind.
She said, looking out the window at the snowfall.
I don't blame them, though. No pony really wants to come all the way out here and spend time with me anyways.
Picamina couldn't stop herself from tearing up.
I've been meaning to ask you, what are you doing all the way out here?
Rarity asked, still struggling to speak with the unpleasant aftertaste lingering in her mouth.
Why does he live in Ponyville where it's warmer?
Also, your friends would really love to have you again, too.
Friends? Oh, you mean them?
Surprisingly, she didn't get angry at the mention of them, but instead became more sullen.
I don't want to see them anymore. They only like to play tricks at me.
She quickly turned and shot Rarity an ugly glance.
You should have helped them. You have no idea how much that hurt.
Rarity felt a terrible guilt build up inside, despite being completely innocent in the whole situation. One of her friends had been living alone for so long, as far as she knew. No pony had even stopped by to try to work things out.
I'm so sorry, Pinky. I had no idea.
Rarity cried. So they miss you a lot.
No, they don't.
Picamina shouted.
You saw them. First time you see me in years, and they tried to prank me.
Rarity balled into her host as Rarity continued her attempts to convince her of the misunderstanding.
Please, Pinky.
Rarity pleaded.
They miss you. I miss you. Shut up!
She shouted at the top of her lungs, causing Rarity to reel back and walking by a certain side Pegasus.
You don't like them, I know them. If you're going to defend them, then I have nothing to say to you.
With that, she stood up and turned away from Rarity, sobbing quietly in the corner of the room.
What was all the shouting about?
Fluttershy called out.
Oh, you're awake,
Rarity responded, surprised her friend was up.
It's nothing, darling. We must be on our way soon, at least as soon as you are ready. Oh my. Is Pinky okay?
Fluttershy asked timidly, nosing her crying in a corner. Before she could go and offer her shoulder, Rarity held out her hoof to stop her, shaking her head.
She isn't. I don't think we can help her either. Not alone, at least.
Fluttershy had enough time to stretch out her legs in preparation for their journey back to Ponyville. Her wing was still sore and swollen from her injury, making it too painful for her to move it. Picamia returned back to her room with her 2 dolls already. Rarity knew she needed to do something, but with Picamia so far gone, she needed the help of all of her friends to remind her of their friendship. Besides, there was something more important, at least to Rarity, what she needed to find. In the time he spent in Picamia's home, Sleebell could have come and gone already. Rarity may have missed her opportunity to reunite with her sister. Fluttershy stood at the door waiting.
Wait.
Rarity said before turning towards Picamia's room. She gave the door a gentle knock, waiting for the answer, but none came.
Pinky, my sincerest apologies for everything I said. But I just want you to know, you don't have to live your life alone anymore. If you ever need somebody, I will be there for you.
Rarity waited for an answer, but none ever came. Disappointed, she turned to Fluttershy and walked towards the door.
Let's go, Fluttershy, while it's still fairly clear.
She gave her a timid nod before they opened the door and headed out. Picamia opened up the door to try and stop them, but it was too late. Her home was empty, just as empty it already has been.
Pinky, I think she meant what she said. You shouldn't have been so hard on them.
The Twilight doll said in a condescending tone.
Me a promise, remember? As long as we have each other, we would never need anybody else, Picamia cried. Right, Rarity?
The Rarity doll remained silent. Rarity and Fluttershy made their way back to the safety of Ponyville. The trip was, for the most part, uneventful, other than the fact that Fluttershy limped the whole way. Their first stop was to Ponyville General. Rarity owed it to Fluttershy to make time to get her wing properly cared for. As they entered the building, they were greeted by an older white mare with a faded pink mane. Right away, she noticed that Fluttershy's wing was inflamed and swollen, and walking with a limp. Nurse Redheart came rushing over to them, leading Fluttershy leaning on her shoulder to take the weight off her injured hoof.
Oh my goodness, Fluttershy, what happened to you?
She asked, starting her condition.
It's nothing. I guess I just overexerted myself,
She said timidly. Both Rarity and Nurse Redheart exchanged sarcastic looks, raising an eyebrow in explanation.
Right. Well, we'll get you taken care of.
Nurse Redheart cut in, breaking the awkward moment.
We should probably check on the extent of your injuries. She led Fluttershy by her injured hoof to an empty room for a quick examination.
Rarity waited patiently in the lobby, reading some old-fashioned magazines that sat on a coffee table for who knows how long. She focused on every page, fascinated by each little article. The opportunity to read up on future fashion trends was too much to pass up. The more she read, the more excited she became, practically squealing out loud right in the lobby. Rarity looked up quickly, biting her lip. She sifted her eyes around the room for any pony that might be looking for her, before slowly slipping the magazine into her saddlebag.
It's not cheating. I'm just finding inspiration,
She tried to assure herself. Within a few minutes, the door opened up, revealing Fluttershy being led by Nurse Redheart back into the lobby. Her wing was bandaged up, secured in a sling with her hoof, whilst another was in the sling. She hobbled over to Rarity, smile on her face.
See, Rarity, it's nothing to worry about. I've seen you keep from using them for a while,
She said, gesturing to her hoof and wing with a head tilt. Even though she wore a sincere smile, Rarity was overwhelmed by guilt over her friend's injuries. She hadn't pushed her so hard. None of this would have happened. She rushed over to the butter yellow Pegasus, with tears in her eyes, as she lent her shoulder to lean on.
I'm so sorry for the shy, she cried. I've been so selfish. Can you ever forgive me? Oh, you don't have to blame yourself,
Fluttershy beamed assertively.
I care about Sleebell too. I'll do anything I can to help her.
Rarity swung around and wrapped her hose around Fluttershy, being extra cautious of her injured limbs.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Goodbye. Good luck.
Fluttershy squeaked from her doorway as Rarity headed on to her way to the outskirts of Ponyville once again. After their last ordeal, They agreed it would be best if Fireside stayed back and got some rest. The path to the Whitetail Wood wasn't particularly long, but it wasn't weather control either. However, unlike their previous trip, Rarity could handle it on her own. Making haste, she galloped down the road. She had already lost a lot of time with the unexpected stop at Pikamiya's residence, then again for Fireside at the hospital. By her estimates, it was around 5 in the afternoon.
At this rate, I'll lose my dear sister forever. No more distractions. I must find her, no matter what the cost.
Rarity continued down the path till she reached the edge of town, stopping right at the town limits. A chill ran down her spine, not from the colder temperatures, but from the eerie feeling that crept up on her. She looked all around. The only ponies were a few pegasi, pushing away stray clouds into the edge of town. Resting on top of one of the clouds, however, instead of working, a white stallion with a blue mane seemed to be watching Rarity leave town intently. Strange, Street whispered to herself. After a few moments, he continued doing his job, moving the cloud he was resting on the back to the edge of town. Rarity quickly shrugged it off, as she continued onwards into the white abyss. She found it hard to navigate through a combination of high winds, a barrage of snow and sleet, and chest-deep snow covering most of her path. The freezing air was biting her lungs. With a sight of pain, she pressed onwards. Stopping in this weather would mean certain death, but she knew that once she made it into the woods, the weather would die down sufficiently. Using her magic, she cut an indentation in the path of snow ahead of her, making sure she could still see the tan dirt in the pathway before continuing. Without any defining features along the way, a horizon to make a point, was the only way she could navigate through the abyss. After a short while, she could finally see a tree line of white-tailed wood just ahead of her. With an extra burst of energy, she bounded forward into the forest, almost immediately feeling a difference in the climate. The tall white trees weren't thick, but their numbers served to create a mild barrier for the wind, creating their own sort of climate control. Still, not many ponies inhabited these areas, due to the dangers of living so far from civilization. Verity shivered, knocking off a large amount of snow that had accumulated in her body. She hadn't even noticed it, since her whole body had been numbed from the cold. Her pace slowed to a crawl as she felt the exhaustion of her trip finally begin to set in.
I must go on. I'm so close.
She crossed herself.
Bell,
She called out between pants.
I'm coming.
As on the horizon appeared a small cottage, not like the one Pikamiya lived in, but much cozier looking. Rarity continued on, as fast as she could, as the features became clearer. It was built from stone and wood, not very well, but sturdy enough to survive the blizzard. Its roof was made of hay, but the constant wind had knocked off much of it, leaving holes here and there, or feeling the wooden frame beneath it. In front of the building was a wooden plaque, covered lightly in snow. Rarity brushed off the snow with her hoof, revealing the painted numbers 1133.
This is it,
She said, beaming with the confidence and pride. She slowly looked at her hoof, and gave the shanty wooden door a firm knock. Instead of an answer, the door gave off a ghostly creak and swung open. Rarity peeked in, looked around the shack.
Hello?
She called out with an inflection in her voice. There was no answer, but only the ghoulish moan of the wind blowing in through every crack in the walls. Rarity slowly opened the door, until a small chain snapped taut. The chain was the only thing keeping the door from swinging wide open, but it was easily removed with magic. As she let herself inside, she lit up her horn to provide a light in the small one-bedroom shack. Inside, she could see dust floating around, either as if nobody had been there in a while, or just because the floor was dirt. In the center of the room sat an iron stove, with a metal pipe leading up to the roof. Round the walls were simple furnishings, a small bed, one chair and table, and a small counter. On the table, however, something caught Rarity's eye. A small rectangular picture frame, covered in dust sat. She magicked it over and brushed off a portion of dust, revealing a picture of herself and Sweetie Belle, 15 years ago in Canterlot. She remembered that day well.
Look, give me.
Sweetie Belle asked excitedly. On the path ahead of them was a photographer, taking a picture of a couple standing where Canterlot Castle could be seen behind them. Okay, I'm gonna count to three, then when we take the picture, the photographer said in a thick accent. It was a slim tan stallion, wearing a black turtleneck sweater, gray beret over his slick dark brown mane. The couple pulled each other close and smiled for the camera as the photographer took his position under the veil, holding up a flashlight. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Just before the camera snapped his shot, the Colt brought his face to his sweetie's cheek and laid a big smooch on her. With that, she lit up as bright as the camera bulb's flash.
Aww!
Both Rarity and Sleepbell cooed and Nelson. Rarity was sold. A different couple took their photograph and paid the stallion. Rarity went up and asked, "And this for a photo?" "Ah, the price is for 3 bits for the photo. It's 6 for the photo and frame," he said with a smile.
I'll take the photo with the frame. I want to remember this forever.
Rarity beamed. The photographer nodded quickly and prepared his camera rig for another photo. "Take your scissors while I get the camera lady," he said, working with the dexterity and precision of a surgeon on his camera. Sleepbell had already rushed over to the edge of the walkway, overlooking the river, and took her place, bouncing with excitement. Rarity followed after her, dropping to her haunches right behind her sister, lowering her hose on her shoulders to keep her still. "Okay, same as before. On the count of 3, I take the picture," he said, before pulling the veil over his head. Rarity and Sleepbell stood as he held the bulb. "Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's right before the photographer snapped the photo. Rarity slipped down and placed her hose on her little sister's side, placing her snout to her neck and blowing hard to tickle her. "My heart!" Click! The photo captured a beautiful scene. Her sister was laughing happily in her arms, with the sun just peeking over the castle in the background. Rarity would never forget that moment for as long as she lived. She carefully set the picture back on her table, tears in her eyes. That was possibly Sleepbell's last memory of them together, before her life took its unexpected turn. Rarity was filled with sadness as he fell into the chair, weeping quietly. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Fluttershy sat on her sofa, surrounded by animals who were concerned by the bandages. Angel stood by her head and brushed her hair while she rested. He was an old hare now. Due to Fluttershy's care and diligence, he was able to live well past his expected lifespan. While he slept, he took charge and commanded all the animals with a firm paw to give her space, to which they obliged. He turned back to care for Fluttershy, much like she did for him every time she was sick or injured, before there was a knock on the door to startle them both. Fluttershy hopped off the couch and hobbled over to the door to greet her guests. As she opened the door, standing at the entrance was a pony wearing a black hoodie, which covered almost all of its body. Fluttershy squeaked in terror as he hid behind the door.
Oh, hello. Is there something I can help you with?
He stepped back on his haunches and removed the hood, revealing her long, flowing, light pink and purple locks and a unicorn horn.
Sweetie Belle,
she called out in surprise, hopping out from behind the door.
Well, you can't start quicker than Spike, that's for sure.
She said with a smile on her face.
I was told you know where my sister is? Rarity.
Fluttershy squeaked.
Oh no, she went looking for you in the Whitetail Wood. We gotta go find her.
Fluttershy made a motion to give chase, before stumbling into the waiting arms of Sleepbell.
Well, Fluttershy, not like that. Sleepbell chuckled. My word, what happened to you? Oh, I took a little tumble when I tried to fly into Blizzard. But I'm okay.
Fluttershy said with a smile.
I'll tell you about it later. Unless you want to hear it by now. I think it's a go find Rarity. Unless you want to wait here for her. No, you're right, Fluttershy.
Sleepbell beamed, finally able to meet up with her sister after so long.
I must be on my way. Thank you so much for your help.
With that, she darted down the path towards her home in Whitetail Wood.
Come on.
Fluttershy called out to the speeding unicorn. With boundless Rarity, Sleepbell ran through the snow, having memorized the path by heart now. She was making light effort that Rarity had put out to get there. The wind whistled a joyless tune in her ears as he bounded through the snow. The cold air didn't bother her much, since she would frequently run in the cold to keep her agility up. All of her years on the run made her a fairly fit mare. She could clear her name. She could probably hold her own as an Olympic athlete. For long, she had already reached the edge of the Whitetail Wood, picking up her pace to finally be reunited with her sister. As she reached her cottage, she slowed to a halt before catching her breath. She would enter her sister.
This is it. 15 years and I finally get to see her.
Catching her breath, she pushed open the door to a dark room. Laying her horn, she quickly scanned the room before seeing her sister sitting at the table, back to her and head resting on the table.
Rarity!
She sighed with glee. Rarity slowly lifted her head to turn her sister, seeing bounding towards her. Mrs. Sleepy had been running towards her. She came to a quick stop when she saw Rarity's face. She had been crying, mascara running down her face and dripping off her chin. This is when she noticed that Rarity was hoof-cuffed to the legs of the table.
I'm so sorry, sweetie Belle,
she sobbed. Just then, the door slammed shut, and 2 royal guards shut out from behind Sleepy Belle, grabbing her and throwing her to the ground. Sweetie on a bed! The guard behind and said in a commanding voice, "You're under arrest for the crimes of arson, armed robbery, evading arrest, and 6 counts of assault." He flipped her over, forcing her hosts together and cuffing them. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to an attorney." His voice began to trail off as Sleepy Belle stared, transfixed on her sister's soul's eyes as she continued to sob.
How could you?
She shrieked in a booming voice.
How could you do this to me? I didn't know.
Rarity said in a dead tone. "You thought your lip could run forever, didn't you? We received a tip from a Tootsie Flute that your sister knew where you were," he boasted. "We simply followed her for Cloudsdale, and she led us right to you. Ha ha ha!" He laughed as he lifted her off the ground. "How does it feel knowing that the only family you have left led to your inevitable captive?" He moved his face and looked away from Sweet Belle's ear. "How does it feel?" he bellowed.
Tootsie Flute, you trusted her?
Sweet Belle shrieked even louder this time, causing the house to shake.
I didn't know.
Rarity said again, staring through her eyes at his face.
It's her fault.
Sleepy Belle continued to yell, getting louder with each word.
She started the fire, made my life hell, and you trusted her? I didn't know.
The guards were too busy enjoying the torment that the elusive criminal they had been chasing for over 11 years was enduring.
I hate you, Rarity,
she said as the guard led her room.
I hate you!
The romancing guards turned the handcuffed Rarity, turned to leave. "Feel free to go now," he called out before slamming the door shut behind him.
I am so sorry.